All three of those things could absolutely play a factor in why there's been a discrepancy in representation. Nevertheless, there has been one, regardless of what the reason is, and you can't fault people for saying, wow, I've felt and I've embodied this disproportionate representation, and it's impacted my self-esteem. It's impacted the way I see myself. Black, you people, you cult followers, listen. You got to be more gracious to the third party people. I'm not saying that that's the only thing that matters when it comes to helping Black children to thrive, or Black people in general to thrive and to rise out of the circumstances that we've been thrust into for a myriad of reasons. I'm not saying that that's the only way to do it, but we can't lie that what you see, once you see it, then it becomes easier to be it, right? Chill out, be gracious, be empathetic, love on one another, and give people the opportunity to espouse their thoughts and their perspectives. And where they're wrong, where you feel like they're wrong, educate them. Hello, family, and welcome back to the Bastion of Critical Thinking. I'm Raven, therapist, thought leader, and theologian, and I'm so happy to have you back with me today. Or if you're new here, welcome. Have a seat. Make yourself comfortable, because today we have such a good and really, really relevant topic that I feel like I needed to come on and espouse my thoughts about, because I've been seeing the conversations that we've been having, the public discourse that's been happening around Kamala Harris, and the conversations about representation and whether or not that matters, and if that's a good enough decision or reason to vote for someone. And I have some thoughts, like always. And the reason why I feel like this is a relevant topic to have on my channel is because regardless of where we stand politically, I will never, ever, I want to just say this actually as a disclaimer before we get started, I'm not going to be coming out and endorsing any candidate. Not that my little opinion has any weight, seriously, but I'm just saying, for me personally, I feel like in a thriving democracy, we do get that right to be able to protect something as sacred and as important to us personally as who we're voting for. And so I don't feel it necessary to necessarily come out and say who I'm for or who I'm not, because I'm a therapist. I'm not a political pundit or a political expert necessarily. I mean, I worked in politics for several years, but that doesn't necessarily make me an expert, and I haven't come out as a political expert. And so therefore my opinion really doesn't matter one way or the other with regard to who I'm voting for. However, what I am an expert in is I'm a therapist. I'm a clinician. And so I am well trained, well versed in conflict resolution, and there needs to be some conflict resolution surrounding our political discourse, especially if we're going to move forward collectively as a country and heal some of these divisive wounds that have been cultivated. You can disagree about how they've been cultivated. I don't even care about necessarily where you feel like they've come from. All I'm saying is I think we need to do a good job of trying to create some good conversation around how best to move forward as a country and how to be more gracious and empathetic toward one another. So anyway, with that in mind, I want to talk today about representation, whether or not that matters, and how we can cool some of the rhetoric down around some of our vitriol that we have toward one another's perspectives and political opinions. Okay. So let's get started. So like I said in the introduction, guys, our political discourse is just way too dismissive. It's dismissive of people's real lived experiences. It's dismissive of people's passions and the things that they bring to politics, or their political perspectives and their persuasions. It's dismissive of people's lived experiences. And the thing that is so problematic with that is because politics is nothing but a culmination of people's lived experiences and problems or issues that arise in a civilization that political figures and governmental systems reacts to and responds to fix. Obviously, it doesn't necessarily always work like that. And of course, this varies based on the type and style of government that your country abides on or runs on. But in America, we run by a democracy, oligarchical democracy, but still a democracy nonetheless, right along the edges. And anyway, what that means is people come to their political parties or their political representatives with their issues, and then the political parties or the political representatives take notice of those issues, and then they respond. Again, doesn't necessarily always work like that, and we can have a conversation all day long about some of the ills within our political system that has made it not work like that, or has worked in its direct opposite, right, or not in its interest. Nonetheless, that's roughly how our political system works. And so what that means is any issue that a person brings to the political zeitgeist that they're saying, this is something of concern for me, whether or not you feel like it was fed to them by algorithms or fed to them by the political apparatus that convinced them that this is a bigger problem than what it is. Again, I recognize that we can have conversations about those kind of nuances in this discussion, but regardless of how those people came to those feelings and where those feelings come from about that particular issue within that person, that's theirs to have. And so when we're talking about the conversation of representation, I've been seeing so much vitriol and dismissiveness and almost like uppity kind of an attitude about people's perspectives about representation and wanting to see a black woman, an Indian woman, a black and Indian woman, Jamaican woman, whatever you call her, in the White House as the free leader of the free world or leader of the richest country and the most powerful country in the world. And that's not fair. And I think we're misguided in that. So let's talk about a couple of reasons why. First reason, as a black woman in America myself personally, I know all too well, and if you're anybody with eyeballs, you can see as well, there is a disproportionate amount of representation of black people and black women specifically in positions of leadership and power across all industries, right? Now, hold on, before you think I'm just about to like go into the typical talking points. That isn't to say what people typically attribute that to. Oh, it's racism. It's racism. I think there's a bit more nuance, a lot more nuance actually that can be attributed to that, because truthfully, guys, there are so many variables that can come into play when we're talking about why women are in positions of leadership and power across, like I said, across industries, and especially with regard to the country. Some of the more blaring ones that come to mind for me are just women's inclinations as opposed to men's inclinations. Men are more typically inclined, again, talking in a heteronormative context, men are more typically inclined toward jobs that have a trajectory and a pathway of leadership, and toward opportunity and the probability of becoming like a CEO or a VP or something of a major company, right? And then on the contrary, women are more inclined to more people service jobs and jobs that are more oriented around people and service to people and community and things like that. Neither are any more or less important. Neither have any more or less value than the other. They're just different. Stop. And I know there'll be all the nuance police is saying, no, me, I'm a VP. I'm going after VP in my job and I was denied. And because I'm a black. I care, and I hear you, sis, and I promise I get it. Or bro, I hear you. However, the stats, the numbers just don't bear out that women are more inclined to go towards jobs that raise them high in executive leadership or executive leadership positions. Not because they aren't necessarily qualified, but they just aren't, the inclinations just aren't there. And that's okay, right? So that's one reason why I realized that we have somewhat of a disproportionate amount or representation in these fields or in these industries. Second thing that could potentially be a reason for this is because we can on one end, and this is the one that's going to get me in trouble, but it's true. And I hope that from the sentiment of my other videos, you know that I love my people and it's nothing like that. I just want to have an honest conversation so that we can get to some good solutions. The other thing that is also true is that we can on one end say that black schools, which they are historically disenfranchised because of a myriad of reasons, property taxes, and just historical oppression in general. We can on one end say that black schools, predominantly black schools in predominantly black neighborhoods, are disenfranchised and underfunded and under-resourced, which they are. Title I schools need more money, all of the things. I am on board with you 100%. We can't on one end say that though, and then on the other end say, oh, but why aren't they hiring more black people in these positions of power? Not to say that there aren't a ton of black people that aren't capable of rising to positions of power in, let's say, corporate America or in even political power. That's obviously not what I'm saying. However, what I am saying is the pool for qualified candidates is inevitably smaller, comparatively speaking, to other races of people because of the historic oppression and disenfranchisement and marginalization of black schools or predominantly black schools. And so with that in mind, I can see how that could play a part in why there is a disproportionate amount of black people, black women representative in these positions of power across the industries. Okay, I hope that resonates. And then the third and final one, yeah, some of it probably is racism. Well. Systemic or otherwise, right? If you hire the people that you're in close proximity to, and then sometimes when you do get to the higher positions of power, sometimes there are people, contrary to what some people believe, and I don't care what your positions are necessarily in this context, because I've laid out all the nuance here. Sometimes there are just people that just say, no, No, and I'm sure there are racism, and as a matter of fact, I'm sure racism to some extent gets more sinister once you get to those high level rooms of executive leadership and executive power, because we kind of in this country have an idea about what power should look like and how it should be represented. And sometimes if that just hasn't included you as a people group, then those same people in those same positions of power could potentially say, yeah, no, I don't want to see that. And I have no doubt that that's happening too. Okay. All of that to say, all three of those things could absolutely play a factor in why there's been a discrepancy in representation. Nevertheless, there has been one, regardless of what the reason is, and you can't fault people for saying, wow, I've felt and I've embodied this disproportionate representation, and it's impacted my self-esteem. It's impacted the way I see myself. Black children have never, or largely don't ever, get the opportunity to see themselves represented in a way beyond the goofy clownery that we see on TV. I'm not saying that that's the only thing that matters when it comes to helping Black children to thrive, or Black people in general to thrive and to rise out of the circumstances that we've been thrust into for a myriad of reasons. I'm not saying that that's the only way to do it, but we can't lie that what you see, once you see it, then it becomes easier to be it, right? And so for those people that feel like, no, this will feel good, this will be something powerful for my self-esteem and for my child's self-esteem, and I want to create a world where it's normal for us to see Black people and people of color in positions of power, so that we can start to circumvent some of the ingrained thoughts and things that we've just adopted as truths that aren't truths, and that were socially engineered because of a myriad of reasons, right? I want to shift that, and I want to be able to see myself representative of that. And I'm like largely speaking for people of color who do feel like I am happy to see representation being prioritized and potentially going into the White House as the president. So all I'm saying is, I guess my first point is, there has been a disproportionate amount of representation for Black people and Black women in positions of power. And so Kamala Harris having the opportunity to rise to that place, I think is a good thing. And I don't think we should be dismissive of people's desires to see that, because regardless of why you think it happened, it's there and people feel it. Okay, now let's get to the next point. Policies matter. Listen, I am absolutely a proponent of policies mattering. And as a matter of fact, your femaleness or your Blackness or your people of coloredness have very little to do with the absolute policies that will impact our lives either negatively or positively, right? And so there is no denying. Listen, I've created the bastion of critical thinking here. So y'all know I love critically thinking through the things that will impact society and culture. And there is no denying that politically, we need to be astute, right? And we need to recognize the things that will negatively or positively impact us. And we need to be aware of that to the extent that we're not just making decisions haphazardly based off of how we feel. Totally agree with you. No doubt about that. And whatever you feel about Kamala Harris politically, listen, more power to you. You know, like you do your thing, right? Because I just said in the beginning of the video, it's not our job to police people's political persuasions. It is our jobs to have conversations and to engage in public discourse. And what did they say? Remedy to bad speech is not a cancellation of speech, but it's more speech, right? So you speak to those things, you educate yourself enough, and you speak to the things that you disagree with, and work on persuading people. Work on how you can convince people to come to your persuasion or your side. Okay. So with that in mind, just want to be clear. I am a proponent of absolutely voting based off of policy for sure. Now, I will say this though. The reason why we can't be angry at people that don't necessarily vote based off of policy, but rather based off of representation, is because you can't deny people's lived experiences. Going back to the beginning of the video, remember we talked about how politics is nothing but a culmination of people's lived experiences and a governmental system essentially responding to it and keeping chaos down in a society, right? And keeping a civilization moving and forward moving. So with that in mind, there are real people groups that have experienced disenfranchisement on the basis of either sex, race, or whatever the case may be. And again, regardless of what you think about the nuances that exist there, that is an identifiable fact. And so what that means is This is an actual issue area, right? We can't dismiss it and pretend as if it's just this symbolic thing based in nothing except for representation and symbolism that makes us feel good. Well, yeah, but there has been a disenfranchisement that took place. Again, regardless of why it took place, I'm not placing blame necessarily. However, what I'm saying is it was a real thing that turned into an issue area for a specific people group. And so because of that, now to see something different, it is still an issue area that is really relevant for a specific people group. Right? So being dismissive and callous towards people who feel that is the equivalent of me saying, what's your number one issue area? Oh, okay. Let's just say your issue area is Medicare for all, right? You want to get medical insurance to every person, regardless of the amount of money that they have. We just want to socialize medicine in our country. Let's say that's your issue area. I know for me, that's one that pricks my heart a ton, because for years I watched my mom struggle with a specific illness that would have only cost $15,000 for her to fix, if you will. But because she didn't have insurance, she literally struggled and was tortured with this illness for years until it subsided on its own, because she couldn't afford to get the surgery to get it fixed. $15,000, what rich people spend on a bouquet of flowers and lunch. But anyway, now let's just say Donald Trump supported this position. But then black people came to me and were like, no, sis, he's all these horrible things. He's a horrible man. He's a horrible, horrible person. And he's not white. I mean, he's not black. Kamala Harris is black. And you need to vote for the black person. You need to do that. And then I'm like, well, I'm dumb for, you don't know how deeply this impacts me. You don't know how deeply I feel this in my heart. I watched my mom be tortured for years. You don't know how much I feel this in my heart. How dare you tell me that this is not the issue that's most pressing or the issue that is most concerning, right? Because that's my lived experience. And because politics is nothing but a response to our lived experience and a call to our political representative to speak to that and to address that in the country that I live in, how dare you tell me that this issue isn't big enough to be voting on? Huh? You don't know what I've lived through. You don't know what is most pressing to me and to my heart and to my soul, and what I need to be a better person here, or to feel better about my time here. So all of that to say, I think we need to move away from the vitriol towards one another, the finger wagging and pointing at one another, because we don't know people's lives. We don't know people's lives. We don't know the things that are most pressing to people. And finger wagging at one another because you are somehow better than them or your issue area is most prescient, it's just wrong. I do agree that people are misled a lot of times. I do believe that algorithms are leading and persuading people's political persuasions and perspectives, if they even exist, because largely people's perspectives are just based off of headlines many times. Like, most people don't read. Most people don't engage seriously with literature and thoughts enough to really make a sound, concise decision on political decisions or political perspectives, right? But guess what people are engaged in? Their feelings. And we can be mad at that. I, for one, am deeply mad at that, which is why I've created the Bastion of Critical Thinking here, because I think we are too salacious of a people. And I think our country, it responds to that salaciousness and our desire and our thirstiness for drama and sensationalism, and for our hearts and our ears and our minds to be, our fingers to be tickled with chaos and frivolity. So anyway, saying that to say, our political system, of course, is reflective of exactly that. It's reflective of the appetite of the American people, salaciousness, and frivolity. Nonetheless, that's our lived experience. And so people feel what they feel. And I've even struggled with that myself, right? Even with creating this channel, not being so harsh on people and recognizing that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. How does that apply here? And then we can close here. People don't care about your political perspective in the policy area. Oh, well, in 2017, she voted for this and that. People don't care about that stuff until they know and recognize that you care about them and you care about the issue that matters to them. So if I can make a suggestion, in my humble opinion, if you want to convince people that Kamala Harris isn't the girl or Donald Trump isn't the guy, you want to convince people of that, Speak to the thing that they care about. Speak to the issue that matters most to them. Start with the issue that matters most to them. So if people are saying, oh, well, representation matters, I care about the fact that I get to be seen, or I get to see myself reflected in a position of power. If you're a person who that doesn't apply to, let's say you're a man or a white person, I just got to be honest. If you're a person that doesn't apply to, then don't come at them with shame because they're voting for symbolism. How dare you? No, because you don't recognize what it means, right? And I can speak personally to that, and I really am done. As a black girl with natural nappy hair, not saying that Kamala has that, but with black features, it has been difficult. It has been difficult because femininity has been stripped from me, right? The world seeing me through a feminine lens has been stripped from me largely because of my black features. And what that also looks like is that in public spaces, you don't get regarded as much as people with more Eurocentric features. So with that in mind, seeing somebody representative even remotely close to more of my lived experience and what my phenotype looks like, that does do something to you. And if you're not a part of that community who have had those experiences, then you really can't speak vitriolically to our decision to make decisions based off of those things, because you don't know those things. And I'm not saying that you can't give a critical assessment of those things. I do think that is absolutely a prudent thing to do because it encourages discourse amongst one another so that you can better understand me and vice versa. And if you feel like you have a position that I should be thinking through outside of just my feelings surrounding those things and those representative feelings, okay, cool. Well, then convince me. Have a conversation with me. But stop calling me dumb, because I ain't dumb. I've thought through this and I feel deeply about this. Now, I'm coming for you Kamala stands now, and you blue MAGA people. And I mean MAGA in any regard, right? MAGA for you blue MAGA people, the red MAGA people, all of the political persuasion MAGA people, the people who are kind of like, and when we say blue MAGA or red MAGA, obviously I recognize that MAGA means Make America Great Again, and it came from Donald Trump. I'm not necessarily doing that. That's turned into this cultural euphemism that essentially describes people that are cult followers of their specific party or their specific political persuasion. You people, you cult followers, listen. You got to be more gracious to the third party people. You have to be more gracious to the people that are saying, actually, I'm sick of this duopoly. I'm sick of this binary choice and these binary options that don't serve any of my political interests and that don't really care about the people and that are corporate captured, and the two-party system that has been largely centered around the same donors, the same people in the background pulling the strings. People are sick of that system. And every election cycle, it can't be a vote or die kind of a thing. It can't be this,
oh my God, we're under so much immense pressure. We have to just make a decision. I know that they suck. I know that none of their policies align with the things that are most prescient in your life. But who cares? Shut up and vote.
It can't be that every time. And so when people make the case for third party voting or candidate write-ins, that's also a representation of what their hearts are and what their political or policies that speak to them are. So we can't be dismissive of that either. I know that there have been so many people that are so condescending to third party voters or people who write in candidates, as if to say that, oh, it's just never going to be possible, so shut up and die with that. Like, say that to Rosa Parks. Say that to Harriet Tubman. Tell the people in the past that literally fought and died, bled. Tell that to the people who fought in wars, people who literally sacrificed their lives to see real change in this country that felt at the time completely impossible, I'm sure, to see through. Jim Crow fighters, frontline union workers, right? People who have put on a soft shoe to go stand with the workers. You gotta know Obama language there. But to go stand with teachers on the picket line, workers who protest and have seen change in their policies in their corporations because of their protests. Tell that to those people that your little protest doesn't matter. You don't matter. Your thoughts don't matter. Fall in line. Yeah, that's a real convincing message. Voting is not solely about doing what's right for the overarching thing. I get that, yeah, we do need to sometimes swallow and make adult decisions with critical thinking. However, Sometimes people have come to the thought that, yeah, I have critically thought through it. And so I have to vote my values. I have to vote what matters to me. That's the whole crux of this democracy, guys. That's what democracy is about. People representative government. And so there is no one person who is invalid or invaluable, even if you don't necessarily like their position. We need a various or variant in a wide gradient of positions, because that's what people representative democracy is. No one person or no one people group are monolithic. I know we said that about Black people, but that is universally applied. And so that means that I want the more voices, the merrier, the more perspectives, the merrier, because I'm not solely right. Me, myself as an individual, my lived experiences have led me to one thing. And don't get me wrong, I encourage reading. I encourage nuanced thinking through hard topics, but that doesn't make me automatically right. Take your self-righteous self on somewhere with all of that condemning of people, because it doesn't work in a representative democracy. If you want something different, go to Russia, go to China, where your perspective doesn't matter. And it's one thought and that's the only thought. But that's not what we do here. And to the extent that that has been happening, because I've been noticing some of the things, again, I'm not going with my own personal political perspective, but take note of people. And I'm leery of people that want to strip you of your perspective, strip you of your right to think whatever you think for the sake of them feeling like they're right and them espousing this self-righteousness or lording themselves over you. That's not democratic. Stop it now. So third party people, I get why people are angry a little bit at them sometimes, to some extent, because it's like, man, I really want this person to rise because this issue is concerning for me. But they also feel concerned because their issues aren't being represented. And also, final thought here, you don't know what is possible. You don't know what is possible when we put concerted effort behind things. People who are voting third party, at some point, if you get enough people to do that, and if you get enough people to write people in, or if you get enough people to cast a protest vote or cast something protest in any capacity, right? No, this can be universally applied. Change happens through people-powered campaigns. When people come together and make a decision that, no, we're going to use the people power. Maybe we don't have the money, but we have the people to make a difference. That matters. So stop being dismissive because it doesn't bode well with your feelings. No, we're going to let democracy play out. And however it looks, if we can't change it with our ideas, with our perspectives and persuasion, then we're going to consistently let democracy play out because the alternative is far too dangerous. Okay, all of that in mind, I hope you heard my heart. I hope you hear my perspective here. I'm not making an endorsement whatsoever of any specific candidate. All I'm just essentially saying is I want us to critically think, and I want to challenge you and create a space, a bastion, where we can come together and critically think through some of the things that we're hearing around political discourse and around the cultural discourse in general. And so I felt like this rose to the level for me to speak to it. Chill out, be gracious, be empathetic, love on one another, and give people the opportunity to espouse their thoughts and their perspectives. And where they're wrong, where you feel like they're wrong, educate them. But this isn't the time to be divisive. There's no point. First of all, it's literally no point. Forget all the political stuff. It's goofy. Like, how can a person who is literally you, just in different lived experiences, be anything other than just a mere representation of you in another body? That's how I see it. So anyway, that's why I'm always saying, like, fam, even in the comments, and y'all have been killing the comment section. Shout out to y'all. But that's why in the comments, I'm always like, sis, bro, you'll always see me speak that way because I see fellow humans or other human beings as my sisters and brothers in this human race. Call me corny, call me cheesy, call me whatever you want to call me. But why wouldn't I? We all eat, poop, drink, sleep the same. We all want the same things, health, wellness, happiness. So that sounds like we're all the same with just a variation of lived experiences. So anyway, okay, I'm done being Mr. Rogers today. I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye. I wrote 2 books and I think you should buy them. If you've clicked on this video, this one will definitely be super useful for you. It's called It's Not Political, The Case for Mass Divestment from Pop Culture. And it makes the case for why we need to divest from everything in pop culture and really reckon with all the ways that it's negatively impacting us or impacting us in general, and getting back to our moral compass and the things that make us most humans, which is morality, decency, dignity, and how best to get to those things. I give like a whole navigational tool on how to do that. So you should get this book. The second and the first one I actually wrote is Lessons. Oh, okay. I thought it was backwards. Lessons from My 20s, basically a navigational tool to help you navigate young adulthood. Even though it says for my 20s, I promise you it can be universally applied to all adults. I help you do adulthood well in this book. So you should pick this one up too. Wherever you buy your books, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, Amazon, they'll both be found on there. So, or you can go to ravenrenee.com and pick them up too, wherever you buy books. Alrighty guys, back to the video.